Welcome everyone to join us today for the smoke puja of the White Umbrella Canopy Buddha Mother. Today we will continue with the 38th episode of the Visualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhisattva series. What is the topic we are teaching today? It is to use the oral pith instructions of the Diamond Sutra and the Heart Sutra to solve difficult problems and the 5 dangers that affect our reincarnation. What are the highlights today? If you do nothing at the beginning and do not try your best to solve the problem, what will be the consequences? If we try our best to use the Dharma to solve difficult problems, what good results will there be? How can we use the Diamond Sutra and the Heart Sutra to help find the root cause of solving problems, or having greed, hatred and ignorance? What will be taught today is not only how to use the oral pith instructions of the Diamond Sutra in daily life to help us solve problems and enhance our awareness, but also add the Heart Sutra. That is, the 2 sutras will be used together for teaching. Because only by combining these 2 sutras together can we teach how to find the root cause completely and thoroughly, which can help us enhance our awareness and even solve problems. If the difficulty of solving a problem is extremely high, should we give up solving it? Under what circumstances can we give up solving these problems without it being a wrong action? Is it more difficult for us to find the root cause of greed, hatred, ignorance or solve problems than to analyze the problem? These will be explained in detail today. Before that, let's take a look again. In fact, in the entire process of our Dharma practice, if you really want to completely escape from reincarnation, or become a Buddha, you must practice the Mahayana Buddhism. Practicing the Hinayana is not enough. If you practice the Mahayana Buddhism, you must go through the 5 paths and 10 levels before you can practice the Dharma successfully. For detailed information, please refer to the video entitled Classification of Buddhist Dharma in Practice, Essence of Emptiness, available from our Dudjom Buddhist Association, International's TV channel on YouTube. Let us briefly explain it now. From the start, we should cultivate to a position where we have 10 kinds of awareness as the basis, so that we will never have doubts about the Dharma or anything. This is what we must do when we first learn Buddhism. The foundation to establish is called the level without doubts. If you start to practice the Dharma from the level without doubts of the 10 beliefs, that is, 10 kinds of beliefs, until you complete the 4 preliminary practices, it will already take an Asamkhya Kalpa. An Asamkhya Kalpa is equal to 10 to the power of 51 for the universe to experience formation, persistence, disintegration, and annihilation. That is, the time is so long that you cannot calculate it. After that, after countless lives, some memories have faded away. If you have to re-find those memories to practice the Dharma, you may not be able to retrieve those memories before you die and be reborn to the next life. Just imagine how many lives you have to go through before you get to this lifetime, and finally be able to retrieve all your memories. Know that you have practiced the Dharma before, and what level you have reached, and then continue to practice the Dharma. After such a long time, you can imagine that you may have fallen into hell many times and you have gone through a lot of hardships before you can escape and have the opportunity to practice the Dharma again. Therefore, If you now practice the Dharma with exoteric Buddhist methods, your chance of success will actually be very slim. Suppose you are lucky in the hopeless situation, and you can cultivate from the first level to the 7th level, which will take an Asamkhya Kalpa. Then from the 8th level to the 10th level, you have to go through another Asamkhya Kalpa. You can imagine how long it will take. In such a long period of time, you do not know how much pain you have to suffer. And you have yet to become a Buddha. Only when you reach the 11th level can you truly enter the most ultimate and thorough path and become a Buddha. This is the wonderful enlightenment, the level of universal light. If you think about it, you have to go through the 3 great Asamkhya Kalpa to become a Buddha. Some people retreat to the next best and say that they would rather go to a Buddha's pure land as it is very safe. You can practice the Dharma slowly there. This is just your wishful thinking. In fact, Buddha Shakyamuni has long said that in the 3 realms, there is always just pain. When you have the blessings to go to a realm of heaven or a Buddha's pure land to practice the Dharma, the blessings may have been exhausted before you succeed and you will fall again. When you are in such a joyful heaven, you will forget to practice the Dharma. The speed of your Dharma practice will be very slow, which is similar to that in hell. One is too painful to cultivate, and the other is too happy to cultivate. The difference between the two is actually not great. This is just your wishful thinking that it will work. What really works, as Buddha Sakyamuni once said, is that you should take the opportunity to practice the Dharma when you are alive, when you have memory in the human world. Your memory in the human world is considered the best. You should take advantage of this opportunity and do it now. Cultivate well until you are free from reincarnation. In case you are unwilling or unable to practice the Dharma, it is hoped that you can still go to a Buddha's pure land. This is just a temporary measure. What can really enable you to practice the Dharma is still the one in the human realm. So, now that you have obtained a human body but refuse to practice the Dharma, I can tell you that you have missed too much. You have missed so much that you will be walking on a very long and painful path in the future. Some people say that it is better for us to practice the esoteric Buddhism, which claims that one can become a Buddha through the current body in the present lifetime. Are we not able to complete the big plan to save ourselves? This eliminates the need for endless pain. Why is this possible by practicing the esoteric Buddhism, but not the exoteric Buddhism? What is the difference? The problem is that a slight difference can lead to a huge mistake. Because the exoteric Buddhists practice the Dharma in the cause, talking about cause and effect, and slowly planting the cause. They are not directly practiced in the result, so it needs to go through the 3 great Asamkhya Kalpa. They just do some little good deeds and slowly modify their minds, so it really has to take a long time to reach that position. How can we actually become a Buddha in the present lifetime? At the beginning of your Dharma practice, cultivating the 10 beliefs, you must learn to transform the mind into wisdom. Transform all the bad things in the mind into wise things. Successfully train until the 5 kinds of wisdom are developed. The direction of our Dharma practice is to enhance the awareness. Why? If you think about it clearly, what does it take to become a Buddha, or truly escape from reincarnation? It is the awareness. In the end, we must achieve the wonderful enlightenment and perfect enlightenment before we can become Buddhas and formally escape reincarnation. That is, the awareness is the focus of our Dharma practice. In other words, when we start to cultivate the 10 beliefs, we must connect it with the awareness to practice. Only then will we have the opportunity to become a Buddha in the present lifetime, and do not need to suffer so much pain in the realms of hells and hungry ghosts. Let us now explain how to cultivate the 10 beliefs, by connecting them with the awareness from the start. According to the Names of Sages chapter, upper volume of the Sutra of the Garland of a Bodhisattva's Primary Karmas, the 10 beliefs are divided into 10 kinds of faith, or awareness. The first is the mind of deep-seated confidence, sad. The second is the mind of thoughtful awareness. The third is the mind of diligence. The fourth is the mind of wisdom. The fifth is the mind of meditational concentration. The sixth is the mind of no return of Inivataniya. The seventh is the mind of dedicating merits. The eighth is the mind of protecting the dharmas. The ninth is the mind of observing precepts. And the 10th is the mind of keeping vows. You can refer to episodes 30, 31, and 32 of the Visualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhicitta series, which give an introduction to these 10 types of awareness. Now, how we apply to the Dharma practice is the key point. From the beginning of cultivating the 10 beliefs, we must connect it with the awareness to practice, so that we can accomplish through the current body in the present lifetime. The 10 beliefs, the 10 kinds of awarenesses, are our cause. It is not like what the exoteric Buddhists say to slowly do good deeds and distribute rice grains to be called the cause. This is too slow. Although it is also a cause, that cause is really far from the one that cultivates the 10 beliefs and connects with the awareness. It is a difference of many kalpa. What is the result? Ultimately, we aim to have the awareness, and the two must be connected. If you practice the 10 beliefs that has nothing to do with the awareness, no matter how you practice, the awareness will not be developed. This is a cause and effect relationship. How can the awareness be developed? This is a method of Dharma practice that many Dharma practitioners, some of whom have been practicing for decades and many lifetimes, do not know. First of all, they do not know that the Dharma practice requires cultivation of the mind. It turns out that cultivation of the mind is the core. They do not know what the core of mind cultivation is, which is to develop the awareness. What is the method to develop the awareness? No one knows. Therefore, you will find that no one teaches it out there. This is because they do not know. They do not know, so they do not know how to teach it. We need to know now. What do we need to know? What is the method of our mind cultivation and Dharma practice that can help us develop the awareness? Firstly, you must understand what the mind cultivating procedure is. The mind cultivating procedure seems to include some worldly matters. Is this the real Dharma? Of course it is. It is a bridge that helps us understand and apply all the Dharma, so as to achieve success in the Dharma practice. It is a very important bridge. However, there is still a long way to go. The mind cultivating procedure is not enough, far from it. You must work with some oral pith instructions to practice the Dharma successfully. Without these oral pith instructions, you are unable to become a Buddha in the present lifetime. These pith instructions are the Diamond Sutra's oral pith instructions. The first is not to abide in any form, and the second is not to abide anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness. This can help us develop the 5 wisdoms, and then become a Buddha in the present lifetime, by working with emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. How do we connect with the awareness to practice the Dharma? The 10 beliefs. How to practice by connecting the 10 kinds of awareness with the mind cultivation and Dharma practice. You must know how to apply the methods of mind cultivation and Dharma practice. Now I am teaching you the application. There are 5 steps. But how to apply these 5 steps? What are the details? You must know these details to be able to connect the 10 beliefs to practice. If you do not understand these details, you will not be able to practice the Dharma successfully. Even if I tell you that there are these 5 steps and if I do not explain them in detail, you will have to slowly explore them, which will take many lifetimes. You may not be successful even spending many years. That is, you still have to rely on a guru to slowly teach you these details and how to apply them. This is the key point. In other words, what can a guru do? A guru can help you shorten all the things that you will have to endure, a lot of pain to learn in the future. Now it can be taught to you in a very short period of time. That is, you must cherish, learn, and apply it. Do not waste it. If you waste it, you do not know how many lifetimes and kalpa it will take before you have the chance to come across it again. How to apply and how to know the details, I can tell you, they are all the focus of our Dharma practice. You need to use actual cases in daily life as examples to understand, so I have found some specific cases. Coincidentally, one of my disciples, who had only taken refuge for fewer than 2 months, wrote a letter asking for repentance full of the awareness. The content of the letter is very concise. I think it is very suitable to use it as an example to teach you how to apply the methods of mind cultivation and Dharma practice, so I will use it as an example. In fact, part of it has been explained in the previous session. But it was only the beginning, and the key details will be discussed today. This disciple said, "I've a few things I'd like to repent. Due to the current pandemic, my daughter was trapped alone in the UK and could not come back. The flight ticket back to Hong Kong that she had booked was also cancelled. At the time, I was struggling with whether I should let my daughter stay in the UK or go to the US to live with my brother for 2 weeks before flying back to Hong Kong. Not knowing what to choose, my wife and I finally went to a temple to ask for a fortune and seek direction. I felt very uncomfortable at the time, because I knew that after the refuge, I should not worship other religions or seek fortune-telling. My mistake was due to my failure to firmly believe in cause and effect." This disciple was full of the awareness, and he knew the root of his mistakes. He said that his daughter also understood the situation and accepted to stay in the UK. His mother also suggested that it would be better to stay still for the fear of being easily infected on the plane. Just because I longed for a family reunion, and I hoped that asking for divination would give me the strength to make a selfish choice. Because I didn't deeply believe in cause and effect, my actions were just to satisfy my desire to reunite my family. If I had a firm belief in cause and effect, I would have understood that this separation, and my daughters being left alone in the UK, were results of karmic retribution. Therefore, I should not be greedy and want her to risk returning to Hong Kong, and calmly find a way to stay safely in the UK. My daughter is now settled in a host family, which proves that I was wrong to ask for a fortune-telling. I must release my awareness, not be blinded by greed, firmly believe in cause and effect, and develop the 5 wisdoms. In fact, he clearly knew where he was wrong. For the second question, he said, "Because of the pandemic, my wife and I are at home every day. Since 2 great masters led me to the path of Buddhism, my temper has improved significantly. However, occasionally my wife scolds me constantly, and my mood rebounds slightly. My mistakes are all stemmed from my failure to believe in cause and effect, and I should not have become angry at my wife's complaints and scoldings. Being able to become a couple in this life is due to cause and effect. I shouldn't be annoyed by her naggings, complaints and scoldings. He can see all the core problems. He said, I should have a peaceful mood and think from my wife's point of view, be considerate, tolerant and support her. Even walking away first is better than getting into an emotional quarrel. I remember listening to Master's lecture on YouTube about 4 dharmas of Sramana. I must start with my wife so that when others scold me, I will not retaliate. The third matter he wants to repent is that finally, 2 root masters, I don't know why. Sometimes I feel disrespectful when I see pictures of bodhisattvas. I'm very upset, because for some reason I have bad thoughts. Such as a certain bodhisattva having so many faces or heads, it's so scary, why is it so ugly, etc. Sometimes I feel disrespectful thoughts starting to appear, and I immediately turn my mind away, or think about something else. But I really don't know why, because as long as I am not preparing to recite mantras and do my daily homework, these thoughts will not appear. It's as if my subconscious doesn't want me to practice the Dharma, and I feel very annoyed and worried. I don't know what to do. I kneel down and ask the great masters for guidance. I'm afraid that doing this will continue to sow evil causes and lead to my downfall. I promised this disciple not to reveal his name. Regarding the questions he asked, he agreed that I could explain them slowly at a Dharma event. In fact, we explained part of it in the previous session. We now do a brief review. Last time, we explained the 4 beliefs of the 10 beliefs, 4 kinds of awareness, and how these beliefs are connected with the mind-cultivating procedure. You can refer to the 37th episode of the Visualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhicitta series. The mind of deep-seated confidence, SAD, and the mind of thoughtful awareness must be cultivated together with the acceptance of the mind-cultivating procedure. What exactly do we want to accept in these 2 awarenesses? Firstly, we must believe deeply in cause and effect. If we use this case as an example, you must accept that your daughter's current situation is the karma of past lives. You must believe deeply in cause and effect, so that you can face the situation of not being able to reunite your family now, and do not make yourself feel uneasy or unhappy because of this. You must believe deeply in cause and effect to calm your emotions. Secondly, believing firmly in cause and effect is not enough. You should solve this problem. What can we do? You must have faith in the Guru. What faith? If your Guru knows how to teach mind cultivation and has taught you the entire mind cultivating procedure, you should solve the problem and develop the awareness according to the Guru's teachings. You must know that every time you have a problem, every time you have an impact, every time you have greed, hatred or ignorance, or something very disturbing happens around you, whether this is a danger or an opportunity, is in your hands. If you regard it as a danger, it means that you are in a mess, being led away by your own emotions, paying no attention to anything, only getting emotional, and complaining all day long. These are called dangers. What is an opportunity? Opportunity means that it turns out that each of these can be regarded as a good thing. Why is it a good thing? Because these can help you develop the awareness, but there is a condition. You must have a guru who can teach you to believe deeply in cause and effect. After calming down your emotions and gaining meditational concentration, you can then follow the guru's teachings, which teach you the mind cultivating procedure. Then, you can develop the awareness. That is, there need to be several conditions, your inner conditions. Do you really accept these? There are also external conditions. Do you have such a good guru? Only when you have both internal and external qualities can you have this opportunity. Otherwise, you actually cannot do it. The third awareness is that you must accept that all sentient beings are Buddhas, so you will develop a heart of respect. Only with respect can you have a broad mind to accept what they have to say. You can search for gold and find gold nuggets in the sand, which will always help you. And the help is more than just finding gold nuggets. When you recite that all sentient beings are Buddhas, this kind of awareness truly becomes your awareness. In the future, when you want to integrate into one body and enter the Dharma realm and stay in the Dharma realm to formally become a Buddha, you will rely on this awareness. You need to train from now on. When you start practicing the Dharma, you must have this kind of awareness in your faith and remembrance. Moreover, you should set a goal at the time that you will not violate the precepts and have bodhicitta. That is, you need to set a goal for this problem. Next, what is the mind of diligence? You have to be diligent in asking questions. The first point of the questioning is, what is your goal? For example, in this case, is it for the safety of your daughter, or is it to reunite the family? When you set a goal for your daughter's safety, you have a goal to make decisions. Secondly, do you have greed, hatred or ignorance? If you cannot get together as a family, you will become restless, which causes greed, hatred and ignorance. If this is the case, you must ask yourself whether you have greed, hatred, or ignorance. It is not enough to just check whether you have greed, hatred, or ignorance. There is a third point, and that is whether you have ever taken wrong actions because of greed, hatred, or ignorance. For example, have you ever asked for fortune-telling? What is the mind of wisdom? The mind of wisdom means being wise to analyze. Firstly, analyze it based on your goals. For example, how can you arrange to ensure the safety of your daughter? Secondly, when collecting information, you need to collect comprehensive information and make an analysis based on the right time, the right location, and the right people. For example, what protections are available to her if she leaves the UK or remains in the UK? Thirdly, you need to analyze why there is greed, hatred, or ignorance according to the precepts and the Dharma you keep. This is the point. It turns out that the previous ones are not the point. Do you know that the third analysis, analyzing why you have greed, hatred, and ignorance, is to help you truly develop the awareness, and this awareness can help you escape from reincarnation or become a Buddha? So, the focus begins now. For example, is the reason why you have greed, hatred, and ignorance because you really want to reunite with your family immediately, or because you will get angry whenever things do not go your way? You also need to study this. That is, does this occur for a certain event, and is this event the root of all your emotions? Or do you always lose your temper no matter what happens? Is it true that whenever things do not go your way, you will have greed, hatred, and ignorance? They are completely different and have completely different roots. Let's go on and give an in-depth explanation now. We have already talked about these in the previous session. Now, I will make a more in-depth summary, which was not mentioned in the previous session. The first is to believe deeply in cause and effect. Why should I believe deeply in cause and effect? Because if you deeply believe in cause and effect, you will accept it, so your emotions will not easily give rise to greed, hatred, and ignorance. Not easily giving rise to greed, hatred, and ignorance can help you release the awareness, which is very important. When you cannot release the awareness and your emotions are agitated, the awareness will not be developed. But when you accept that thing and settle down, you can release the awareness. What is the benefit? While you have the awareness, you will have faith in your guru and practice the Dharma according to his teachings. What is the benefit of practicing the Dharma according to his teachings? You will have no deviations, and there will be no deviations in what you do. It is not done randomly by you but based on the teachings of a wise guru. Then there will be no deviations. Thirdly, because you accept that all sentient beings are Buddhas, you will not develop self-attachment. You treat everyone equally, including yourself and others. Without the self-attachment, you will easily develop the wisdom of equality. Therefore, there are three kinds of awareness in the whole acceptance. If we accept these three kinds of awareness, it can help us develop the wisdom of equality. Then comes the question, what is the goal? How does it help you? I have told you before that the goal must be set on Bodhicitta, and your goal must be linked to Bodhicitta. Otherwise, it cannot be called a goal that is in line with the Dharma, and in line with the Buddha's teachings. When you set goals in the future, you must not omit this. If you miss it, you cannot continue. You must remember this. How can this help? It turns out that once your goal is linked to Bodhicitta, you can release your awareness. Secondly, you need to ask if you have greed, hatred, or ignorance. What is this about? It is about the internal merit. You can develop your internal merit. Why? Because we look within to see if there is greed, hatred, or ignorance. If we find it, we will definitely try to change it, so that we can change our mind. Therefore, this is actually a merit. However, not many people know that Dharma practice is to cultivate these merits. Rice distribution activities are not necessarily very meritorious. In fact, these are only external merits, which are far from the internal merits. The third to ask is whether there have been any wrong actions. If there have and they are found, this is called an external merit. Why? Because if you have found them knowing that some wrong actions have been caused, and you immediately repent and resolve the wrong behavior, you can turn the bad karma into good karma. Then you can change your virtuous, evil karmic portfolio. So, this is an external merit. That is, the awareness of these three questions, the three kinds of awareness, that can help us develop merits and the discriminating wisdom. It has these functions. Next is analysis. When we analyze, why should we analyze based on goals? Because it will not deviate from bodhicitta, nor will it be omitted. What is the benefit of this? It means that the awareness can be released. After releasing the awareness, why do we need to collect data and analyze it based on time, place, and people? Because this can achieve an effect called outer study, external understanding, which can help you solve problems. What about you analyzing why there is greed, hatred, or ignorance, based on the precepts you keep and the Dharma? I have said that this is the point. I have said all this, starting from here is the point. This can help you develop the inner study, internal understanding. What can it do? It can modify the behavioral formulas. What is the inner study? It sounds familiar, and it seems that many people have mentioned this term. The inner study is one of the 5 main studies of Buddhism. Volume 38 of Yogacarabhuma Sastra states that the 5 main studies are what all bodhisattvas should seek. We are also bodhisattvas. Once you have taken the bodhisattva vow, and once you have made the vow to become a Buddha, and to save all sentient beings in the future, you are already called a bodhisattva, and you are called a bodhisattva with the initial resolute. All bodhisattvas, no matter what level they cultivate to, how high or how low their cultivation is, must learn the 5 main studies. What are the 5 main studies? The first is the study of linguistics, which is language, linguistics, philology or literature, that is, the expression of language and the ability to express or write. This is the ability of language and writing. Why should we learn this? Do you need to learn these things to learn Buddhism? If you study Buddhism, you must always read the Dharma. In what language are most Buddhist sutras written? We are very lucky nowadays. Many great sages have translated the sutras into Chinese for us, so those of us who understand Chinese are able to learn Buddhist teachings. This was impossible in the past. If you did not understand Sanskrit, there would be much of the Buddhist literature you could not understand. In other words, if you want to spread the Dharma, you must understand the language. If you do not understand the language, how can you use different languages to help sentient beings? Why should we learn the study of linguistics? This is because it can help you practice the Dharma, and it can also help other people's Dharma practice. For this, you should learn. Sorry, I only know how to speak Cantonese, but there is no problem with my writing ability. You can read The Lake of Lotus, the articles I wrote, and you will find that the expressive ability of writing is not a problem for me. In terms of language, although I only know one language, with today's technology, I believe that in the near future, language will not be a barrier to communication. It will be possible that everyone can communicate easily with different languages. I hope this day will come soon. The second is the study of logistics, which are logic and argumentation. What is it? That is, if you are a bodhisattva who has realized the inner study. What is the inner study? The inner study means that you have understood all the Buddhist teachings. You are erudite and clear within yourself, and you will not be confused and ignorant. In this way, you can use some logic or argument to refute those who teach the Buddha's teachings incorrectly, or those who misunderstand the Dharma and the other religious practitioners who distort the Dharma. You can debate with them, which can make people who did not believe in Buddhism now do and make those who believe in it stronger in their beliefs. What is this called? The ability to express is very important. However, the focus is not on the expression, but on inner clarify. Many people, disciples or Dharma believers have written to me. They say that the Buddhist teachings they have heard before, some of which have been listened to for decades, are difficult to understand. They are a mess and only half understandable. There is no way to connect them together, apply and integrate, or understand them at all. There are only superficial explanations of terms, without deeper understanding, details and application methods. It is unclear how to integrate them. However, since listening to my teaching, they have understood a lot. The previous incomprehension, distrust, and all kinds of wavering about Buddhism are gone, because they understand it after listening to my teaching. These are the inner clarify. If you do not understand the Dharma, and even if you have done a lot of research, are thoroughly familiar with the explanations of all terms and appearances, and can even recite them by heart, you will only be able to explain what you understand at most when you try to explain the Dharma. For what you do not understand, you just read it from the book. The audience will not be able to understand it, anyhow. But this is still called having an opportunity to hear. It is like learning the Dharma, which is better than nothing. The fact is that if you find that when a person explains the Dharma, and he can use very simple principles to explain very profound Dharma, it is not just that he has the study of logistics, or good expression skills. The most important thing is because he has the inner study. He really understands all the content, and can explain it in a comprehensive and simple way to let you understand. The focus is on the inner study, and the ability to express is auxiliary. That is, you have a complete understanding within yourself, and you have strong expressive skills. You know how to make presentations, draw diagrams with arrows linking this and connecting with that. The whole image can be expressed very clearly. Expressing profound truths and intricate connections clearly and concisely is called logic. You must have logical thinking to draw these diagrams and express them. You have to draw it point by point, and explain it point by point. This is called logic. There is also the ability of argumentation. These are called the study of logistics. But what should be the focus? It should be on the inner study. Therefore, the higher the score of the inner study, the higher the level of expressive ability. It is useless if you only have high expressive ability. If you do not understand it, how can you express it? If you do not have the inner clarity, it will be of no use no matter how strong your expressive ability is, how good your language skills are, whether you know many languages, or whether you can write to the sky. If you do not have the inner clarity, you will not understand it and you will not be able to express it. Therefore, the higher the score of the inner study, the higher the level of expressive ability. Now we will formally explain the inner clarity. The inner study is the teachings and philosophy of Buddhism. It is the first of the 5 main studies and ranks first. For Buddhism, the inner clarity means that one should know, comprehend, and integrate the works of the Tripitaka, i.e. sutras, Vinayas and Abhidharmas written by all great sages. For a bodhisattva who has realized emptiness, he truly understands what emptiness is. He knows that it is neither existence nor voidness, and he will not be confused and does not know that it is neither existence nor voidness. He fully understands it. With the inner clarity, it benefits his own Dharma practice, but also helps others to become enlightened. He is able to explain emptiness, for example, when he explains the non-emptiness. Many people do not know what non-emptiness means. It turns out to be the awareness. This is the core. You must describe the words, the awareness. If you have not cultivated to a certain level, you will only think that emptiness means nothing, and you will not know that there is non-existence and also non-emptiness. Everything being changeable and not real is called non-existence. It turns out that there is the awareness inside that is called non-emptiness. If you do not cultivate emptiness to a certain extent, you cannot explain it. Before I taught, neither existence nor voidness, no one could explain it. They memorized and read out the term, emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. They could at most explain the non-existence to you. They could not explain the non-emptiness. They did not know that non-emptiness was. No one knew how to explain it. After I explained it, of course there are people knowing how to explain it. That is, a bodhisattva who has realized emptiness can explain it. What about those who have not realized emptiness? They can internally examine greed, hatred and ignorance, and come up with a cure to develop their awareness. Do as I teach you and look inward to see if you have greed, hatred or ignorance. This will help you develop the awareness. It turns out that if we have to examine our own greed, hatred and ignorance, by doing so, a danger will become an opportunity, and we will have an opportunity to develop the awareness. This is called the ability to integrate. So the inner clarity refers to the ability to integrate. It is not enough for you to understand the Dharma, you must also practice it. Only if you have really practiced and realized it can you explain it. If you rely solely on understanding, something will definitely be missing. You will be lacking something and it will be inaccurate. There requires both levels of understanding and practice to be called the inner clarity. The fourth is the medicinal study, medicine, pharmacy and even magic. Magic is dharani. Why needs a magic? Because at times people are harassed by the spiritual world, or they have airs and channels. Then you can use a mantra, which is the vibration frequency of the sound, to open up the blocked meridians and channels for them. Or, it can help them solve certain problems of harassment by the spiritual world. Or, it can also help strengthen their body. The principle is like this. Of course, medicinal skills can help sentient beings. That is, when you propagate the Dharma, it will help you save sentient beings. The fifth is the study of arts and craftsmanship, which refers to art, science, craftsmanship, agriculture, etc., which are the skills needed in daily life. The modern study of arts and craftsmanship means understanding technology to promote Buddhism. So, you ask me if I know how to farm. Do I know how to make crafts? I can tell you that I do not focus on those places. My focus will only be on one direction, which is how to help me spread the Dharma and save more sentient beings. I will only learn for this one. So, when I started to preach the Dharma more than 20 years ago, I was already aware of the need to gain computer knowledge. I felt that today's technology was dominated by computers. So, I learned how to use a computer and relevant applications of word processing, spreadsheets, databases. I would learn all of them. I also learned how to typeset, so that I could do the typesetting of books or leaflets for publicity. This could help sentient beings learn Buddhism. So, I went to learn typesetting. I also learned how to edit a video. Why learned video editing? Because in the past 20 years, technology has continued to advance, and I have been catching up. Once you learn how to edit videos, you can make videos and put them onto YouTube, which will help sentient beings. I also learned how to create web pages. The web pages of the association were made and written by me. That is, if you really set your mind on the Dharma and saving sentient beings, you make them the focus of your life. This is the focus of my life. I will work hard to learn these in order to help sentient beings. Have I studied the Dharma? Of course. The Dharma must come first. If my Buddhist knowledge is not of this level, what is the use of learning so many technologies? Because there is no content to explain if I only understand a little bit. I will not make any sense. How can that be? Therefore, the Dharma must be given priority. You will find that I put the focus of my life on Buddhism, Dharma practice, how to help sentient beings, and what I can learn to help them. My whole mind, my whole life is placed in these areas. So, why do you think I am so capable and can do so many things? In fact, you can also do it. If you put your whole life's thoughts there, then you can do it, too. In fact, every sentient being can become a Buddha. Every sentient being has that awareness. The question is whether you are willing to put your energy and concentration there. If you are willing, you can succeed. These are called worldly abilities that assist in propagating the Dharma. But nevertheless, I can tell you that the most important thing is the inner clarity, which is the most difficult. You must know that the Dharma is very difficult. You have to understand it thoroughly and know how to express it to teach people. You need to be concise and express the very complex Dharma in a very short space of time. Do you know that this difficulty is extremely high, but it is also the most important? So, I put my focus there. Now let's see, what are the 3 items in analysis? These are 3 kinds of awareness that can help us develop internal and external light, internal and external understanding, and the discriminating wisdom. You said earlier that the most important of the 5 main studies is the inner study. How can one develop the inner study? Now I am teaching you that when you cultivate the wisdom of the 10 beliefs, you must learn to analyze. You must analyze based on these 3, and you will have the outer and inner studies. Now I will teach you how to do it. Then, let's see what is the mind of deep-seated confidence, SAD, plus the mind of thoughtful awareness. Added together is faith. These 2 beliefs are the basis of all our awareness. So, the first step is to learn to accept these 3 kinds of awareness. If you do not have these 3 kinds of awareness, and when you continue to practice the Dharma, you will find that you will be wobbly, just like a table with only 3 legs and 1 missing, swaying from side to side. So, you must remember that your faith must have these 3 kinds of awareness, which are the basis of the awareness, while the mind of diligence is the basis of merits. Now if you want to plant merits, have internal merits, as well as external merits, you should ask more questions, and ask questions diligently. However, you must ask questions accurately, and do not ask random questions. You have to ask about these 3 to be accurate. This is the basis of all our merits. Therefore, if you want to have more merits and make your next life better, in case you fail to become a Buddha, remember to be diligent in questioning. What is the mind of wisdom? It is the foundation of wisdom light. There are both wisdom and light. That is, if you want to have wisdom and be able to develop the inner study and the outer study, you must analyze based on these 3 items, so that you will develop your internal and external light. You will have cultivated the wisdom of the 10 beliefs. Therefore, the whole thing here must be connected with the mind-cultivating procedure to achieve it. When you look at this mind-cultivating procedure, acceptance, questioning, analysis, root finding, and treatment, which seem to be worldly, but this is your bridge, the bridge for us to practice all the Dharma. We use these 5 steps to incorporate them into all our Dharma practices, and you will find that they will miraculously lead you to develop the awareness. It turns out that this is what is needed to develop the awareness, and you need to practice them together. The 10 beliefs must be practiced in conjunction with the mind-cultivating procedure, so that they can be completed quickly through the current body, or in the present lifetime. If you insist on not practicing this mind-cultivating procedure, like to explore on your own and follow your own methods to cultivate the 10 beliefs without following the steps I describe, that is certainly fine. But you will have to cultivate for many kalpa, even an Asamkhya kalpa, before you can successfully cultivate the 10 beliefs. But what you are asking me now is, how can we achieve success in our Dharma practice through the current body in the present lifetime? It is what I am teaching you now. If you insist on not learning, that is okay. You can use the method you like, but it will take a long time. So, you must know the details. These are the details. Acceptance is divided into 3 points, questioning is divided into 3 points, and analysis is divided into 3 points. Each has its own function, strengths and merits. These are the details, and you must understand them. In the future, I will ask all my disciples to draw this chart. If you cannot draw this diagram, it means that you have not understood it. If you have not understood it, do not ask me to teach you so many other things. You must understand all these things. You must understand the details to be able to practice it. This will make it faster. Now let's see. When we practice, is it enough to understand those details? Of course not. First, we need to release it. After that, we can develop the awareness. In fact, there are 2 steps. The Diamond Sutra has 2 oral pith instructions. One is not to abide in any form. The first step is to release the awareness and avoid emotional agitation. Otherwise, all the awareness will be trapped. That will be no good. The second oral pith instruction is that one should not abide anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness. After releasing it, you can develop the awareness. What next? It can help you develop the wisdom of equality. When we practice the 3 kinds of awareness of questioning, we also need to release the awareness without abiding in forms, so that we are able to not abide anywhere and arouse the awareness. Only in this way can the discriminating wisdom be developed. They are linked one by one. The third is analysis. We need to use these 3 kinds of awareness for analysis, and we must also release the awareness without abiding in any form, so that we can achieve not abiding anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness. Only in this way can the discriminating wisdom be developed. That is, if you follow what I teach, step by step, and practice without omission, these are called the inner clarity. That is why Buddhism is also called inner clarity or inner learning. Do you know that if you want to cultivate the inner clarity, you must follow the steps I am teaching now, so that you can integrate all the Dharma? Otherwise, you will be like other people who talk about the Dharma in a mess, with unclear content and no coherence. Now let's see how to combine the mind cultivating procedure and the 10 beliefs to develop the 5 wisdoms. We have talked about this before. The mind of deep-seated confidence, SAD, means acceptance. Only with deep belief in cause and effect, and faith in the Guru, can the wisdom of equality be developed. With regards to the mind of thoughtful awareness, one must accept that all sentient beings are Buddhas in order to develop the wisdom of equality. They must be practiced in conjunction with the acceptance of the mind cultivating procedure. As for the mind of diligence, we need to ask questions: do we have greed, hatred and ignorance in our emotions? This can develop the discriminating wisdom. The mind of diligence is connected to the questioning of the mind cultivating procedure, which means that you have to ask questions diligently to develop the discriminating wisdom. The mind of wisdom means analysis. Why do we have greed, hatred and ignorance? You have to connect with the analysis of the mind cultivating procedure to develop the discriminating wisdom. This is how it is connected. Let's see. The acceptance, questioning, and analysis of the mind cultivating procedure have been explained very clearly. Now we come to the highlight, which is root seeking. In fact, the above acceptance, questioning, and analysis are not that difficult, but this root seeking is more difficult. You will find that there are many more details, and it is not that simple. We are now explaining root seeking. Root seeking means searching for root causes based on the goals that have been set. Secondly, you need to find the root cause of solving the problem based on the type, nature, importance, and formation process of the problem. Next comes the main part, which is the third point. You need to find the root cause of greed, hatred and ignorance in the 4 forms and 5 aggregates based on the precepts you have observed and the Buddhist teachings. That is, you must look for the root in the 4 forms and 5 aggregates. This is the most important thing. This is considered the worldly aspect, and the other one is the transcendental aspect. Using this example again, your goal is your daughter's safety. So, how do you find the root based on the goal that has been set? You must first set a goal, which you have done previously. You must find the focus in this goal. What is the focus of your goal? It is safety. If you can find the focus, it is actually very easy to solve the problem. To find the root based on the goal, we must first find out where the focus is within the goal. This focus is the root of solving the problem. In other words, when solving a problem, this focus should be put first, and everything else is secondary. With the focus, it will be easier to solve the problem. In fact, you may have taken the first step of finding the root, and already known how the problem can be solved. Why take the second and third steps? Why are there worldly and transcendental considerations? Because that is how we can enhance and develop the awareness. So, even if you have solved the problem, you should not stop there. You must complete the following 2 steps. Do not be lazy. When solving a problem, you must not allow secondary requirements to override or confuse the primary focus. For example, you cannot add family reunion as your goal or sub-goal. This is not allowed, as it will confuse the focus. Otherwise, the correct direction for solving the problem will be deviated. If the goal is set incorrectly, your focus will also be wrong, and the correct direction for solving the problem will deviate. So, you have to be careful. This is one way to find the root cause of solving the problem, and this is also what you need to pay attention to. Now let's talk about the second point. How do we find the root cause based on the type, nature, importance, and formation process of the problem? Why go there and do these things? You will learn later how important this is. Let's first talk about the types. We are getting to the point now. First of all, is this a personal problem? Second, is this a problem of your relative, or one of your relatives, or multiple and many relatives? According to this case, only one daughter was involved. Third, is this a question of relatives? Fourth, is this a question about friends? For example, what about a dispute between one or more friends? Fifth, is it an outsider's problem? Outsiders are referred to certain people, or colleagues, or all the problems of the outside world, such as a global pandemic. Are you compassionate and concerned about the problems of all sentient beings? Sixth, is it a problem of other sentient beings? For example, is it a problem of your pet? You may ask, why do we use humans or any other sentient beings as categories? I will explain it to you now. The Diamond Sutra is a very important sutra in our daily life. It teaches us the oral pith instructions of not abiding in forms, and not abiding anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness. The purpose of applying these 2 oral pith instructions is to prevent us from abiding in the 6 dusts and the 4 forms. For a detailed explanation, please refer to the 8th episode of our Compassion series, The Oral Pith Instructions of the Visualization Practice for the Emptiness, Neither Existence nor Voidness of the Great Perfection in the Daily Life. I will briefly talk about it now, and will review it later. Now let's explain the Heart Sutra. The Heart Sutra says that when we die, we should remember to visualize the 5 aggregates being empty. Otherwise, something bad will happen to you and you will be reborn in a bad place. If you can visualize that the 5 aggregates are empty, you can remain in the Dharma realm, and depart all anguishes and sufferings. All your pain can be overcome. This also requires the use of the Diamond Sutra's oral pith instruction, not to abide anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness, to achieve it. Do you know that there are oral pith instructions for visualizing the 5 aggregates being empty? As for the 5 aggregates, which are forms, feelings, perceptions, actions and consciousness, and the 18 realms, which are the 6 dusts, 6 roots and 6 consciousnesses, you can refer to the 7th episode of the Compassion series, How to Visualize the 5 Aggregates Being Empty, an oral pith instruction of the Heart Sutra. If you can combine the Diamond Sutra and the Heart Sutra and practice, not abiding in forms, you can escape reincarnation. The following explanation will teach you how to apply the Diamond Sutra and the Heart Sutra in your daily life, how not to abide in forms, and how to enhance your awareness, to escape reincarnation, or even become a Buddha. This is the key point I want to teach you today. The first step is the 4 forms. What is this? There is a sentence in the Diamond Sutra, how so? Such sentient beings no longer have the forms of self, people, sentient beings, longevity, no forms of dharmas, nor forms of non-dharmas. What does this mean? Forms refers to appearances, thoughts or perceptions. Appearances are something that can be seen and appear in a certain way. The form of self is a kind of attachment to the thoughts of oneself. The form of people is a kind of attachment to the thoughts of people and oneself, a kind of attachment to the ideas that arises when I interact with other people. The form of sentient beings refers to the thoughts and attachments that arise among all kinds of sentient beings including ghosts, gods and animals, when they interact with us. The form of longevity refers to gods, Buddhas, deities, or certain people who you think are powerful or superior to others. The attachment you develop when interacting with them is called the form of longevity. No forms of dharmas. What does no forms of dharmas mean? First of all, we need to know what the form of dharmas is. We cannot be attached to anything because all things are dualistic or multiplistic. Anything dualistic or above is called the form of dharmas, which will hinder us from entering the Dharma realm, a state of oneness. We must have no forms of dharmas, meaning that we should not be attached to anything that is dualistic or multiplistic. Because everything above duality is called conditioned dharmas. In short, do not be attached to any form of conditioned dharmas. This is called no form of dharmas. What is no form of non-dharmas? To become a Buddha, one must rely on emptiness. Everyone knows this. I have taught it now, so everyone knows that emptiness means neither existence nor voidness. This is a method to help us become Buddhas. This method is called no form of non-dharmas. It is not an attachment to things, dualistic or multiplistic. It is a method to help us get rid of the attachment to anything dualistic or multiplistic. Therefore, it is called no form of non-dharmas. We should not be attached to these. This is called no form of non-dharmas. I will not be attached to emptiness, and I will not abide in the form of emptiness. However, I know how to apply it, and this is called no form of non-dharmas. Because no form of non-dharmas means unconditioned dharmas. I will not be attached to any of these. Remember, if you are not attached to the 4 forms, it can help you escape reincarnation. If you can do both of these at the same time, you can realize emptiness and become a Buddha. Therefore, Buddha Shakyamuni has pointed out these 6 most important things in one sentence. In your Dharma practice, remember to do these 6 things, so that you can become a Buddha. This tells the whole story. Therefore, the Diamond Sutra teaches us methods to escape reincarnation or become a Buddha. Now let's see why divides it into 7 types. Because personal problems are forms of self and self-attachments. For example, I wish that my family can be reunited. This is called abiding in forms out of good intentions, which is a kind of self-attachment. So, you need to be clear whether your problem now is a personal problem. If so, you should be careful about the forms of self and start looking for the root cause there. Forms refer to appearances, thoughts, and perceptions, as we said earlier. What is the form of people? When you interact with your loved ones, relatives, friends, and even outsiders, you are all interacting with others. This is called the form of people. Why do we need to classify it into family members, relatives, etc.? Because different relationships with people will cause different levels of tension or obsession. The closer someone is to you, the more obsessed you become. So, we need to classify them, and after classifying them, we can slowly resolve them. Sometimes, we can be attached to and abide in several forms at the same time. Other sentient beings, such as pets, I am very attached to my pets. This is called being attached to the form of sentient beings. Other examples include me believing in a certain deity. I would like to go to his temple to pray for divination and worship him. Or I particularly like Bodhisattva Manjushri, or I particularly like Buddha Amitabha. It means that you are attached to a certain Buddha. This is called the form of longevity. You are attached to the form of longevity. That is, when we search for the root cause of abiding in the four forms, we must divide the problem into these 7 categories and slowly resolve them. Now let's talk about nature. Why do we need to classify problems based on the nature? First, is it a question of material or ability? Second, is it a question of emotions or feelings? Third, is it a question of preference or ideal? Fourth, is it a problem of behavior or habit? Fifth, is it a problem of the mind or the subconscious? Why should it be classified like this? You will find out later. Regarding the issue of material or ability, let me give you an example. Use the same case again, the problem of you unable to have your daughter return to you immediately and to reunite the family. This is a question of ability. Some people are particularly attached to the form aggregate. What is an aggregate? An aggregate is a database while the form is the substances. People who are particularly attached to databases of substances or abilities place a great emphasis on the material or ability requirements. When his demands are too high and cannot be met, it will cause emotional problems and will cause problems during his reincarnation. This is abiding in the form of the form aggregate, an attachment to the form aggregate. That is, you are too attached to the material or ability database. There are some roots in the database that you are attached to and cause problems in your reincarnation. Let me now give you an example, which is a case concerning robes. What would Dharma practitioners value most? It is the kasaya or robes. Stated in the Dhammapada Sutra, evil deeds cause the person who does them to fall into the lower realms. After reading this sentence, you would think that the person must have committed murder and arson, and that because he has done evil deeds, he will definitely fall into the lower realms. The lower realms are realms of hells, hungry ghosts, and animals. This is not surprising. If you think so, you are wrong. This is not what the sentence means. It means that as long as you are attached to something even a little bit, you will fall into hell. There is a sentence after that. Just like rust growing out of a block of iron, it actually corrodes the iron. This sentence is from the 240th verse of the Dhammapada Sutra. You can refer to episode 8 of the Compassion series, where this has been explained. That is, rust is produced on a block of iron. Originally, the rust comes from the block of iron, but it corrodes the block of iron until it rots and is ruined. In other words, the evil karma it refers to is not murder or arson, but just some attachment that can kill you. During the time of Buddha Shakyamuni, he had a disciple, a monk from Sravasti called Tisha. One day, a believer offered many robes to all the monks, so Bhikkhu Tissa chose the most beautiful and favorable robe. He was so excited that he thought he would wear it the next day, thinking he would be able to show off. However, he died that night. That is, he has never worn these robes. He was reborn as an insect. Because he loved the robe so much, he thought about it even when he was sleeping, and wanted to wear it the next day. When he died, he was overly attached to such a thing and ended up being reborn as an insect and living in the pleats of the robe. This was the result of their attachment. But the other monks did not know this. When they saw the robes, they thought they were beautiful and did not want to waste them, so they wanted to share them. The insect was very angry and cried loudly. But the sound of an insect was so tiny, how could anyone hear it? There was only one person who could hear it, and that was Buddha Shakyamuni, his guru. His guru had supernatural powers, and could hear even the slightest sound. He heard the insect repeatedly shouting, "Don't give out my robes." So, the Buddha stopped the group of monks and told them not to distribute them and to wait until 7 days before dealing with the robes. The monks did not understand the reason, but they had to obey the master's instructions. On the 8th day, the robes that belonged to Tisha before were distributed to other monks. The Buddha later explained, "Do you know? When Tisha was dying, he was too attached to those robes, so he was reborn as an insect." Why did he only explain it on the 8th day? Why did he not say that the robes could not be distributed when the monks were allocating them? Doing this would make Tisha very angry, and he could be in great trouble. Why did he not say it then? He could not speak then because Tisha was still an insect. If he heard Buddha Shakyamuni talking about him, he would become attached, which would most likely affect his rebirth. You know that the lifespan of insects is very short. They die quickly. The Buddha also calculated that he was about to die soon. It would be better to wait for him to be reborn in a good place, far away from this place. Then the Buddha's words would not affect them. Therefore, the Buddha would not speak right away, but only after a period of time. Buddha Shakyamuni explained that if the robes had been dealt with then, Tisha would have been filled with extreme hatred, that he would have been reborn into a more miserable realm. Because once his hatred appeared, it would trigger the evil karma in the virtuous, evil karmic portfolio, and he would be reborn in a bad place. In order to save this disciple, Buddha Shakyamuni had to be very careful. He said that because Tisha had done good deeds in the past, and insects only have a lifespan of a few days, which is very short and will die soon. As long as he was not stimulated and the guru could help him with Dharma practice, he could be reborn in a good place. That's how it should be handled. You may ask, why did Buddha Shakyamuni not perform Dharma practice to help Tisha immediately when he died? He had to wait until he turned into an insect and died before practicing the Dharma to help him. Then, it shows that you have not understood. I have said this before. If a person's attachment is too strong, within a second of his death he will be reborn as an insect, because of this attachment, which is a big deal. This is because it happens too quickly. He would have been reborn as an insect in less than a second before the guru could practice the Dharma. Even if he practices the Dharma, he will have to wait until the insect's lifespan is over, it dies, enters the bardo, that is, after the consciousness comes out before he can save you. So, the attachment is a big deal. An attachment can cause you unable to be saved. Even if Buddha Shakyamuni is your guru, and he is standing next to you, you do not need to practice visualization, or connect with him, he cannot save you. Their attachment is too terrifying. Their attachment is very dangerous. Just like rust corrodes the iron block, the attachment can also destroy a person and make him fall into a worse life form. It is like rust, which originally comes from a piece of iron. However, no matter how hard the iron is, it will eventually be destroyed by the rust it produces. So, we should not be addicted or attached to worldly things, because the attachment will slow down a Dharma practitioner's progress. Making a little progress is a small matter, but being reborn into a very bad place is a big issue. It was fortunate that the guru was in Shravasti that day. He knew that he had died and was there when the robes were being distributed. If the Guru went to another place to preach the Dharma, and was not in Shravasti, this monk Tisha would see his fellow disciples divide his robes. He would definitely be reborn in a lower realm, either the realm of hells, or the realm of hungry ghosts. It would be either the realm of hungry ghosts, or the realm of hells. Why? It is because of their attachment and hatred. So, we must be careful. This means that if someone is particularly attached to the form aggregate, he will focus on the requirements of materials or abilities, which will get him into trouble. The first type of classification is the form aggregate, which corresponds to the 6 dusts: form, sound, smell, taste, touch, and dharma. The form aggregate includes the scenes you see, all of which fall within the scope of the form aggregate, and are things in the material or ability database. As long as there is a root of your attachment inside, you can be reborn in a bad place at any time. Because the 5 aggregates represent forms, feelings, perceptions, actions, and consciousness, that is, the material database, the feeling database, the thought database, the behavior database, and the mind database. The form aggregate is of materials, while the following 4 are mental databases that will affect our reincarnation, or continued reincarnation, and are the main factors that prevent us from becoming a Buddha. So, be careful. If you abide in the form aggregate, there is a root in the material or ability database, and you are attached to this root, then you will be in big trouble. Now let us explain what the 18 realms. I have talked about these before. Let's go over them again. Form dust. Dust means dusts. These dusts will make you a mess and cover up your awareness. These are dusts. Dusts related to substances can be seen by us as scenes and things through our eyes. It is like the monk Tisha seeing others sharing his most beloved robes. How do these scenes come about? It is through the I consciousness. Consciousness means function. It is through the function of the I, that is, the I consciousness. It uses the function of the eye to receive the images of these substances. It is called the form dust. It has a name, is called the first consciousness. Sound dust means that we receive sound information through our ears and the function of our ears, which is called the second consciousness. Smell dust means that through the nose and the function of the nose, we can smell the smell, which is called the third consciousness. Taste dust means when we eat, we feel the taste through our tongue and its function, which is called the fourth consciousness. We touch things through our body contact, that is, through the function of our body, so we feel those things. For example, when we touch some silk, we feel that it is very smooth. This is called the fifth consciousness. These 5 are called the first 5 consciousnesses, which are the 5 most basic functions. The 6th type is the Dharma dust. What is the Dharma dust? A Dharma dust is the Dharma forms shown by the 5 dusts: form, sound, smell, taste, and touch. For example, beautiful scenery, pleasant music, fragrant flowers, delicious food, the smooth texture of silk clothes, etc., are all called Dharma dusts. These 5 kinds of dust are called the Dharma dusts. Dharma dusts are received by our brain and consciousness through the Dharma dusts collected by the first 5 consciousnesses, and then we will think about whether this scenery is beautiful, the music is good, or if I like the scent or smell of these flowers. This is through our consciousness, which is called the 6th consciousness. But is it really the 6th consciousness that distinguishes these things? Not really. It turns out that the distinction is made by the 7th consciousness, called the Manas consciousness. Why does the 7th consciousness have the function to distinguish these things? It turns out that before it makes a judgment, it will pass through the 8th consciousness, also called the Alaya consciousness. We must this 8th consciousness, which is the general database of all seed consciousnesses, or database for short. All the seeds of consciousness are placed in it, and all the records of your behavior are placed in it. So, when the sixth consciousness receives the information, it says, "I don't think I've ever judged what these are before." It hands it over to the seventh consciousness, and the seventh consciousness says, "Don't worry, leave it to me. I'll find the information." It then goes to the eighth consciousness, and look for any of these things you have come across in past lives. Did you like or dislike these things? What judgment did you make? It looks for these details in the general database. After searching, it says, "I've found these details." It turns out that you didn't like them very much before, or you used to like them very much. They belong to the third category of things you like. Then, the information will be handed over to the consciousness, saying, "If you see these things or smell these things again, you should know that it is your third type of like or third type of dislike. You should remember it. Don't look for me next time. If I now receive the Dharma dust again, which is information that has not been submitted before, I will give it to you to make a judgment on my behalf and then return it to me later." Therefore, there will be certain information in our consciousness, and once we receive the Dharma dust, we can judge whether we like it or not, as well as the degree of our liking. However, if we do not know, we will ask the seventh consciousness to help us find the information. Now let's take a look at when we are reborn. The general database will be stored in the womb at the time of conception. So, we actually have complete records of all our lifetimes, but due to our ignorance, we are unable to discover them. Our Buddha nature and the awareness all exist, but because ignorance covers up our awareness, we cannot become Buddhas. In fact, we all come from the Dharma realm. We originally have the perfect enlightenment. But we are blinded and cannot see it. This is the situation with the sixth consciousness. You need to know its name. These 6 kinds of dust are called the 6 dusts. These 6 organs are called the 6 roots. And these 6 functions are called the 6 consciousnesses. Let's see, 6 plus 6 plus 6 equals 18. So, we give it a name, called the 18 realms. The 18 realms are the 6 dusts, the 6 roots and the 6 consciousnesses. They collect information, put it in relative places and judge it. This involves our 5 databases, which are material databases. Placing all forms in the material databases, these forms will then trigger our greed, hatred and ignorance. These are the source. Therefore, the Diamond Sutra teaches you to not abide in forms. It means that you should not be attached to these forms from the very beginning, so not to cause subsequent shocks. Because once you abide in forms, it is the same as burying a root. Once you have an attachment, you will collect information. When you see a beautiful scenery, you hope to see it every day. This has already placed a root in the form aggregate, which is a material database. Then, you will be in big trouble. When you are reborn in the future, you will want to look at this scene again. Taking one more look, and you may be reborn following that scene. Then you will not have the opportunity to go to the Dharma realm. All your life's Dharma practice will be wasted, so we must be careful. Because the 5 aggregates influence each other. The form aggregate will affect your feelings, and you will have feelings based on all forms, and these feelings will give rise to some thoughts in you. Because of these feelings, you will have desires, thoughts, and plans to obtain it. You will think that this scene is so beautiful, how can you get it? This will cause you to desire and plan. And planning will cause you to act and you will actually take it. If you take actual actions based on all your thoughts, then that is a big deal. Your mind will also be affected. Why? You will cause your mind to change or form karma based on all your actions. You have done it. You have developed the root, which has become a part of your mind, a part of your karma, because you have formerly done that thing. So, you must remember it. What is a mature root? If what you are attached to has penetrated the 5 aggregates, the 5 aggregates have been connected, an action has been taken, and it has become a karmic record placed in the database of the mind, then it is formally a root. You may say, I haven't done it yet. I haven't implemented it yet. I'm still thinking about it. I haven't done it. In this way, you are just connecting the form aggregate, feeling aggregate, and perception aggregate. You are only polluting these 3 databases, which will be easier to deal with. Therefore, when you are looking for the root in the 5 aggregates, you first have to figure out whether you have done these things in this life. Maybe you have not done it in this life, but you may have done it in a previous life, or you may have done it many lives ago. Therefore, there may still be this root in your form aggregate, and some people call these subconscious. In short, no matter what consciousness it is, you must find it. However, the first thing we must do in all our actions in this life is not to abide in forms, not be abide in any form. Because to catch a thief, one must first catch the leader. If I control this place at the first moment, and do not place things in the form aggregate, or have already put them down, but do not be attached to them, then it will not become the root. Some people say that all 5 aggregates being empty means clearing everything and leaving nothing. Wouldn't that make you an idiot? When you see an orange, you do not realize that it is an orange. Of course, you do not know, because your database has been cleared by you. So, it should not be explained that way. You still put the information of the orange in the database, but you will not be attached to this orange. It will not become the root in your database, and it will not affect your reincarnation. Do you understand? In the future, when you go to the Dharma realm, it will not be able to affect you. Therefore, many Dharma practitioners make mistakes. Where do they go wrong? Many people have practiced the Dharma for decades, but failed because of their misunderstanding of the Heart Sutra. Why is that? They think that the 5 aggregates are empty means that everything should be emptied. There is no information about oranges. When you see an orange, you will just say, I don't know what it is. You will become an idiot. This is not the way to explain it. Instead, you should not be attached to a certain piece of information and allow it to become a root. If it has become a root, you must find it out, as per the mind cultivating procedure I have taught you. Find it and resolve it. Therefore, the 5 aggregates and the 18 realms are the factors that trap all sentient beings in the cycle of reincarnation. It is a chain that locks all sentient beings in the cycle of reincarnation. It is also the pulling force of everything and the cause of every trap. So, the 5 aggregates can be regarded as 5 warehouses, and the 18 realms can be regarded as 18 logistics delivery chains. This way, it will be easy for you to understand. Let's now see why we classify these issues as material or ability issues. Because they represent the form aggregate. As for emotional or feeling problems, such as the inability to reunite the family, they affect your mood and temper. If you are used to being emotionally agitated frequently, it will be very easy to trigger the evil karma from your virtuous, evil karmic portfolio when you are reincarnated, or at the critical juncture of life and death. You will be reborn in a bad place. It will be difficult for you to escape from reincarnation or become a Buddha. This is called the feelings aggregate, a database of feelings, such as feeling very happy things, very painful things, or things that are neither painful nor happy. These are actually related to the 6 dusts: form, sound, smell, and taste, touch, and dharma. Therefore, if we abide in the forms of the feelings aggregate, it will be a big deal. Once you get emotional, you will be reincarnated, and if you get emotional at the moment of death, you will be in big trouble. Now let's look at the third category, desire or ideal, such as the desire to reunite with your family, which affects your mood and temper. You must know that the desire of ideal makes you to pursue it from life to life and continue to the next life. For example, if you fail to live up to your ideal in this life, you must achieve this ideal in your next life. For example, if you cannot become an emperor in this life, you must be an emperor in the next life. It will hold you back from life to life, and you will continue to reincarnate, and will not be able to become a Buddha. Unless your desire is that I want to become a Buddha, this is different. If you are eager to become a Buddha, you will pursue the method to become a Buddha, keep pursuing it, and finally find the Guru who can teach you emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, and then you will understand and no longer have this attachment. He will teach you to seek the root in the 5 aggregates. Once you find it, you are not attached to becoming a Buddha, but are also practicing neither existence nor voidness to become a Buddha. This is not abiding anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness, develop that awareness, and become a Buddha without any attachment. This is how you achieve balance, understand. Therefore, if you desire to become a Buddha, and are lucky enough to find a Guru who can teach you these things, you can become a Buddha. This is called the aggregate of thoughts. Is there a root in your database of ideals or desires? If you are abiding in forms, and there really is a root in this database, then you have to be very careful. It is very likely that you will not succeed in becoming a Buddha. No matter how you practice the Dharma in this life, you will continue to pursue it when you die. The 4th is behavior or habit issues. For example, you are accustomed to seeking advice from gods whenever you encounter a problem. Asking for divination or seeking help from gods will attract the intervention of karmic creditors, also taught in the previous session. Why would they intervene? Because they have been chasing you for many lifetimes in pursuit of revenge. You will lose your awareness and autonomy in the hands of these karmic creditors, which will affect you at the crucial moment of life and death, and easily trigger the bad karma in your virtual evil karmic portfolio, and you will be reborn in a bad place. It will be difficult to escape from reincarnation or become a Buddha. This is called the aggregate of actions, a behavioral database. You are used to seeking advice from gods, and whenever you encounter a problem, you go to gods for advice. This is abiding in the form of the aggregate of actions. In your behavioral database, there is a root, and this root is called liking to ask gods for advice. Therefore, we cannot abide in the form of the aggregate of actions. The 5th is a problem of mind, the subconsciousness. Why is it classified like this? For example, you may feel that asking for divination is a very effective way to help. If you have this thought, it will become a root placed in your mind. You must change this conscious or subconscious. Otherwise, you will do it every time you come across a difficult problem, and it will be easy to relapse. If you do not change it, then when you face critical moments in the future, it will be easy for those karmic creditors who want to control you to have a foothold. They know that you like to seek divination, so they wait until you are about to die or in the bardo, preparing to reincarnate. Then they will manifest the temple where you like to seek divination the most, and then manifest a fortune stick holder, to encourage you to go and ask for divination, to ask a fortune interpreter to interpret the fortune for you, saying that you should do this or that to have a good rebirth. But doing this and doing that are actually causing you to be reborn in a bad place, and you follow suit and do them. This is one of the ways that karmic creditors intervene. You will be reborn into a lower realm, unable to escape reincarnation, or to become a Buddha. This one is called the mind aggregate. There is a root in the database of the mind called abiding in the form of the mind aggregate. Such form abiding may cause you to abide in several forms at the same time. We need to look for the root of abiding in the form of the 5 aggregates. We need to learn to find out which database contains the root among the 5 aggregates. Then we have to deal with it and cure it. Again, let's use this case as an example. For example, I want to reunite my family. I and thinking mean to be attached to the form of self. The family is a form of people, that is, you are attached to the form of people. These are positive abiding in forms, and are the roots of abiding in four forms. Although it is a positive abiding in forms, it leads to seeking divination, because of abiding in forms, thus triggering the form aggregate. That is, you hope that you have the ability to reunite your family. This is your desire. It is because of your desire for a family reunion that a scene appears in the form aggregate, and this scene of family reunion becomes attached to you. This scene of the form aggregate is the source of your greed, hatred and ignorance, so we must not abide in forms. As long as you abide in forms, a feeling will arise. You will feel that based on past experience, you can seek a divination, and this can help you make a decision. Because of past experience, you have a feeling developed. You feel that the family must be reunited, and the personal feeling of asking for divination from gods is good. Asking for divination is good for you. The others who also worship the gods and ask for divination are all doing well. Everyone says that it can help solve a lot of problems. That deity is very good, and you feel that he is very good to you. Everyone says that he is very good, and you like him very much. This is called a database of feelings. You will generate feelings based on these forms. This one is called the form of self. I feel that it can help me make decisions, and I feel good about it personally. Others all say that he is good. This is the form of people. If you think that this deity is very good, that is, you worship him very much. This is called the form of longevity, because he is superior to others. In other words, compared with earlier, you are attached to one more form. At first, you are only attached to two forms, the form of people and the form of self. Now you have an additional form of longevity, through the feeling aggregate. This then triggers your thoughts, and you think that seeking divination can solve the problem, which is a thought you often have. You will then trigger desires, thoughts, and direct planning and conception based on these frequent thoughts. You will plan and conceive to seek divination tomorrow. This triggers the behavior, and you will actually do it. Because of this thought, you actually take an action. You turn into action based on all your thoughts. This is a big deal, and it becomes karma. All actions that are carried out will be placed in the mind aggregate, which is the database of the mind, because you really did it. You will think that seeking divination is a good thing. That is, you will trigger a change in your mind based on all your actions, feel better and better, and it becomes karma. What it means to be karma is that it has enough power to penetrate the 5 aggregates, to dominate your fate in future reincarnations. These are called negative abiding in forms. Negative abiding in forms is because it will cause your karmic creditors to intervene, causing you to be reborn in a bad place. This is called negative abiding in forms, which is the root of abiding in the forms of 5 aggregates. So, we must find it out. Now we have found it. Which one is the ultimate root? It has officially entered your mind. Why is it so important that it has officially entered the database in your mind? Because it is the most important root, the root that runs through the 5 aggregates. It is the ultimate root of abiding in the forms of 5 aggregates. Can you guess whether other aggregates have these roots? Of course. It is like this, coming one by one. But this is the ultimate root. Wishing for a family reunion is also a root of abiding in the 4 forms. Now I am teaching you how to find the root among the 4 forms. How to find the root in the 5 aggregates. You must find it before you can treat it, and that's how you find it. The 5 aggregates are 5 dangers that affect our reincarnation. You cannot escape if you do not follow my mind-cultivating procedure in your Dharma practice. Find all the roots, with the greatest pulling force in these 5 databases, and then treat them. No matter how well you cultivate, when you reach that position and are about to reincarnate, you will be pulled back by it. What is the Dharma practice? It is to correct your actions. The goal is to find them out and treat them. The third is importance. Firstly, you need to allocate time, energy, and resources according to the importance of the problem. Secondly, decide the order according to the importance of the problems. Give priority to the problems that are most important to you, and of course solve the most important ones. Thirdly, if the importance is similar, decide the order based on the simplicity or complexity of the problem. Give priority to simple problems, because simple problems are easier to handle successfully and give you a sense of success. Then deal with more complex problems. This way you will have had an experience, and it will be easier to succeed. Fourthly, if the problem is not important but extremely difficult, you have to give up at this time. Why? In order to avoid hindering your own Dharma practice, and wasting time and energy on unimportant, but very difficult things that are beyond our ability, we must give up. Fifthly, if it is a very important, but extremely difficult problem, you must try to solve it slowly by not being attached, not abiding in forms, and withdrawing in order to get calm thinking and rest. That will be good. You must remember what I remind you of. Sixthly, you must remember that being unable to solve the problem is not the point. Allowing yourself to abiding in forms, from trying to solve the problem is the point. If you cannot solve it, it will make you very sad, very obsessed, and emotionally unstable, and this is a big deal. You say, I can't do what my guru teaches me. I am too attached. I can only cry. This is not allowed. This is called abiding in forms. Because abiding in forms is equivalent to being unable to escape from the cycle of reincarnation. No matter how well you practice the Dharma, you will fail because of abiding in forms. Do you understand? Seventhly, when solving a difficult problem, you can only outsmart rather than force it. That is, cultivating wisdom and developing the awareness are the key to solving problems, not solving the problems themselves. It may not necessarily solve the problem. The purpose is to help you develop wisdom and the awareness by solving the problem. This is the point. Therefore, the purpose of Dharma practice is not to solve problems, but to find the root cause of wrong behavior, and modify the behavioral formulas, to help oneself escape from reincarnation as soon as possible, rather than to solve problems in daily life and allow oneself to continue reincarnation. Ninthly, during the process, only focus on doing your best, and do not focus on achieving success. Remember, only focus on doing your best, and do not focus on success. Remember, if we seek the root according to the goal we have set, you will find that it is easy to solve the problem, and there is no need to go to the second and third steps. But why do I insist on you doing this? Because that is the crucial point. We must use these two things to help us find the root causes of greed, hatred and ignorance, and eliminate them. The main purpose is to prevent us from falling into the three lower realms, and to solve the problem of escaping from reincarnation and becoming a Buddha. How great is that? Therefore, these two are the focus of our Dharma practice. If you have to give up in the end, because the problem is too difficult to solve, you have to give up. This means that you are able to advance or retreat, which is a kind of wisdom of Dharmadhatu. What is the Dharmadhatu wisdom? It is the wisdom one has when entering the Dharma realm. But if you do nothing at the beginning and do not try your best, you will not be able to develop such wisdom. Buddhism has been called the Buddha style of lying flat, because many people misinterpreted the Dharma and emptiness in the past, which means to do things in a lazy way. A life of laziness and idleness is a religion of decadence, doing nothing. In fact, it is because people have misunderstood Buddhism. I work so hard to explain the Dharma in the hope of correcting this situation. You must know that Buddha Shakyamuni was not lazy. He preached the Dharma continuously for 49 years. It was extremely hard, miserable and difficult. He did things with his flesh. He had to bear the consequences of karma, and he had to endure the pain caused by his body. Such misery was all for the sake of saving sentient beings. He was not lazy to do it. Why do people say the Buddha style of lying flat? It is all because you have explained the Dharma incorrectly. We should do our best instead of saying empty, empty, everything must be emptied. Let's let it go and pretend nothing happened when we encounter difficulties. We must do our best, use all our wisdom, and develop the awareness to deal with things. After that, we let go of that we feel need to let go. You will only let go at this moment. Only after you have already developed the awareness, and possess all wisdom, and have done a great deal of things will you let go. You have already done many things. It is not like you just do nothing from the beginning or do it lazily. It is not like that. Therefore, Buddhism is the religion of wisdom and the religion of the awareness. This is the name of Buddhism. The name of Buddhism is inner clarity. Everything is integrated, bright and clear, and everything it contains is thorough. The name is inner clarity. What is Buddhism? Buddhism is a religion with a lot of awareness. It is not a religion of Buddha style of lying flat, or a lazy religion. It should not be interpreted this way. If you are so lazy, you will not be able to develop wisdom. Then you will be right, as people say. You really are a lazy religion. This kind of wisdom is based on the acceptance we have from the very beginning, a firm belief in the law of causes and effects. Acceptance, firmly believe in cause and effect, does not mean doing nothing. When you do it, even if you have to let go in the end, you will not regret it. Because you have already accepted it from the beginning, you will not regret it. Do you understand? This is the essence of the law of no attaining mentioned in the Heart Sutra, which operates in the Dharma realm, nothing to gain, nothing to lose. This is the law of the Dharma realm. If you know when to pick it up and when to put it down, this is wisdom. Therefore, after doing one's best and then letting go, it is called not abiding in forms. This is what is called not abiding in forms. In the process of doing one's best, and if one develops the awareness, because of not abiding in forms, and letting go due to a firm belief in cause and effect, this is the core of the Diamond Sutra. The core of the Diamond Sutra is, do not abide in the forms of 6 dusts, 4 forms, dharmas and non-dharmas. We will not be attached to these. This is the core of the Diamond Sutra. What does the Heart Sutra say? Not to be attached to the 5 aggregates and the 18 realms. This is the core of the Heart Sutra. Both are the highest level of Dharma practice, in daily life and meditational Dharma practice. In fact, no one has ever talked about it, and no one can talk about it. The question is, how can it be applied in daily life? This has never been taught. This is because the difficulty is too high. Those people do not even know what the Heart Sutra is, and the core of the Heart Sutra. What is the Diamond Sutra? What is the core of the Diamond Sutra? They do not know, either. Some people do not even know that there are 2 oral pith instructions in the Diamond Sutra. You must know that even if you know that you should not abide in forms, you cannot practice it without the oral pith instructions. You should know that the Heart Sutra should also be practiced using the oral pith instructions of the Diamond Sutra. There are no oral pith instructions in the Heart Sutra. Why are there no oral pith instructions in the Heart Sutra? I will explain that later. Now, let's look at this. It is said in the Heart Sutra that one should visualize that the 5 aggregates are empty. What does it mean that all the 5 aggregates are empty? If you do your best, and do not abide in forms, you can also develop the awareness, and let go, because of your deep belief in cause and effect. This is the true emptiness of the 5 aggregates, if you can achieve it. There are 2 oral pith instructions in the Diamond Sutra: do not abide in forms, and do not abide anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness. In order to practice the Dharma successfully, one must also apply these two pith instructions, otherwise, it cannot be practiced successfully. In daily life, it does not mean doing nothing, but doing things, without abiding anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness. This is called that one should visualize that the five aggregates are empty. This is what the five aggregates being empty means. In other words, this is what arouse one's awareness and arouse one's intrinsic awareness mean. However, many people explain the Heart Sutra, and because there are no oral pith instructions in the Heart Sutra, they ignore it, and when they teach the Heart Sutra, they only say that there is nothing and that everything should be emptied. As a result, many Dharma practitioners follow and practice the Heart Sutra, and they will enter a state of stubborn emptiness, and end up being trapped in the formless realm. The formless realm means there are no substances at all, only the consciousness. There is nothing, but there is still consciousness. And this consciousness cannot be transformed into the awareness, because it has not gone through the process I teach. There are no oral pith instructions, and they do not know what it means to not abide in forms, and how to get out of it. As a result, they enter the formless realm, which is very miserable. Once you are trapped, you will be trapped for a long time. Once you finish being trapped, you will fall suddenly, usually into hell. Why? This situation is very tragic, because the blessings have been used up too much. Therefore, you must remember that the development of the awareness is the essence. Let's explain why the Diamond Sutra and the Heart Sutra should be practiced together. Because these two sutras are both from the 600 volumes of the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutra, they should be used consistently and combined with each other. However, later generations feel that since it is not possible to read the 600 volumes of the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutra from beginning to end, it would be better to extract the essence and give it a name. But the names are different. This one is called the Diamond Sutra, and that one is called the Heart Sutra. Then they are practiced separately. Some people practice the Diamond Sutra, while others practice the Heart Sutra. If they practice them separately, they will not know how to apply the content, nor will they be able to integrate them. They do not know the oral pith instructions of the Diamond Sutra, and that they should be practiced when practicing the Heart Sutra. They do not know that it should be like this and not the two being practiced separately. They all come from the 600 volumes of the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutra. Therefore, you must remember that Buddha Shakyamuni did not instruct that all the sutras should be separated. In fact, the sutras were spoken in a coherent manner, but later generations like to separate them, which has led to confusion among today's Dharma practitioners. So, you do not know how to use them because you do not know that they are connected. Let me tell you right now, they are connected. When we seek the root, we should find out why there is greed, hatred or ignorance in the four forms of the Diamond Sutra and the five aggregates of the Heart Sutra according to the precepts and Buddhist teachings we have received, and go to search for the root. Why? Because it is very important for us not to abide in the forms of the six dusts. This is the source. If you do not abide in the forms of the six dusts from the beginning, there will be no subsequent parts. However, once you abide in forms, you will become attached to the four forms and the forms of dharmas and non-dharmas. Because if you are attached to all of these, you will also be attached to the five aggregates and 18 realms at the same time. This is how it happens. The 18 realms are the forms of the six dusts, however, only the six dusts are discussed here, while the 18 realms are explained more clearly here. In short, they are connected one to another, and we should not abide in forms from the beginning, otherwise they will be connected one to another, like melon vines entangled, connecting to reach the five aggregates. Therefore, the Diamond Sutra mainly explains how to get rid of the source, i.e. the six dusts, 18 realms, and four forms. If you know how to apply the oral pith instructions, do not abide anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness, to eliminate the source, you can help the five aggregates to be emptied. you will be able to achieve the emptiness of the five aggregates. In fact, there is no attachment or root of greed, hatred, and ignorance within the five aggregates. If your Dharma practice reaches this level, it means that the five aggregates are empty. That is, it is not that there is no information stored in the five aggregates, nor are they all empty, but there is no source of what you want to cling to or what you are attached to. This is called the five aggregates being empty. That is, when I see an orange, I know it is an orange, but I will not be attached to this orange. So, the information about the orange is still stored in my database, but there is nothing I want to be attached to. This is called the five aggregates being empty. Now let's look at the Heart Sutra, which states, when Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva practiced the profound prajna paramita, he visualized that the five aggregates were empty and was able to transcend all suffering. An Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva is a bodhisattva who can freely develop their awareness. Therefore, to visualize is to develop their awareness. What to visualize? It does not ask you to visualize the appearance of Bodhisattva Guanyin, with 3 heads and 6 arms, very powerful, and then abide in the form of that appearance. It is not like that. In this way, your 5 aggregates are not empty. Do you understand? What is an Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva? How can you become a Buddha and remain in the Dharma realm? That is, you need to develop the awareness, to visualize, which is the core of Dharma practice. Some people have practiced the Heart Sutra for decades and have memorized it by heart, but they do not even know that this is how it should be interpreted. They do not know that the core of it is to develop their awareness. What needs to be visualized? It turns out that the goal is to develop their awareness, which is called the visualization, that is, how you develop their awareness. How is Prajnaparamita explained? It means reaching the other shore. What is the other shore? The other shore is the Dharma realm, the state of oneness. That is the other shore. What is deep practice? Practicing the Dharma deeply means to operate a deep awareness that can reach the Dharma realm. This is called practice deeply. That is, being able to operate a deep awareness and reach the Dharma realm, the state of oneness, is called practicing the deep Prajnaparamita. What is this awareness? It is the awareness of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. Reflecting, what does reflecting mean? That is to use the awareness to realize and reflect, and then you will see it. That is to ask you, the Bodhisattva, to freely develop the awareness and quickly use your awareness, the awareness that can develop the emptiness, so that you can enter the Dharma realm, the state of oneness. If you use the awareness, you will see that the 5 aggregates are empty. This is the true explanation. Therefore, to reflect and see is to use the awareness to see the 5 aggregates being empty, which is the core of the Dharma practice. In this way, the awareness is important. Our entire Dharma practice is to cultivate the awareness. Otherwise, how can we realize and reflect on everything? What are the 5 aggregates? The 5 aggregates are forms, feelings, perceptions, actions, and the mind. They are ever-changing entities and states that have no permanent and unchanging nature. In the blink of the eye, they will disappear or become something else due to changes. Because they have no physical entities, constantly changing, so this is called non-existence. They do not exist. Due to constant changes, they do not exist in reality. Therefore, they are in a changeable state of emptiness. They do not exist, but are in a changeable state of emptiness. So, it is called non-existence. There is no such thing as an unchangeable entity. We must remember that. To overcome all sufferings means that if you are not attached and do not abide in the forms of the 5 aggregates, you can escape from the dualistic or multiplistic state and enter the Dharma realm, the state of oneness, thus escaping from all the sufferings of samsara. Why? Because there is no suffering in the state of oneness. There is only state of oneness. So, overcoming all sufferings means that if you can develop the awareness and use the awareness to reflect and see the five aggregates being empty, then there is no root in the five aggregates that will drag you to reincarnate, and you can overcome all sufferings. Then, you can enter the state of oneness, and no suffering can entangle you. You will have no suffering, no misery, understand? In other words, the whole sutra actually talks about this matter. The question is how we can train the awareness of the five aggregates being empty in our daily lives. This is where the difficulty lies. The methods of cultivating the mind and Dharma practice that are being taught now teach you how the five aggregates can be emptied. How does this awareness of the five aggregates being empty be developed? How is it trained? How can we develop the awareness by following each step? These are the methods I taught you earlier. The methods of cultivating the mind and Dharma practice that I am teaching you now can make you empty of the five aggregates. In the future, you will be able to freely develop the awareness. That is, you must familiarize the methods of cultivating the mind and Dharma practice that I teach you. In your daily life, no matter if you encounter a problem or any evil thoughts appear in your mind, you will immediately have the awareness, know that you have greed, hatred or ignorance, and know to find that root. Slowly, those roots in your five aggregates that can make you attached and cause you to be reborn in a bad place will all disappear. This will empty the five aggregates. Then, you will understand what neither existence nor voidness means. Non-existence means the absence of the root of the five aggregates. Non-emptiness means that you have the awareness of perfect enlightenment, and you can enter or stay in the Dharma realm, the state of oneness. So, what we teach today is extremely important. Teaching you how to empty the five aggregates is of course extremely important. Therefore, the Heart Sutra and the Diamond Sutra are the highest level and most direct Dharma practice, and the most correct method of solving problems and practicing the Dharma. The Heart Sutra states that therefore, in the void there are no forms, feelings, thoughts, no actions, minds, eyes, ears, nose, tongues, the body, or mind, nor are there colors, sounds, smells, tastes, touches, no eye element, and so on, up to and including no mind element. How to explain this? There are no forms in the void, no feelings, perceptions, actions, or minds means that there are no five aggregates in the Dharma realm, the state of oneness. There are no eyes, ears, nose, tongues, body, or mind. There are no six senses in the state of oneness. No forms, sounds, smells, tastes, touches. In the state of oneness, there are no six dusts. There is no eye element, and no mind element means that in the state of oneness, there are no six consciousnesses, the six functions. Simply put, there are no five aggregates and 18 realms in the state of oneness. But the state of oneness does not mean that there is nothing. There is the awareness of perfect enlightenment. So, what does it mean by in the state of oneness there are no five aggregates and 18 realms? It means non-existence. The state of oneness does not mean that there is nothing. There is the awareness of perfect enlightenment, which is non-emptiness. Therefore, it is very important to practice the correction and the purification of the four forms, five aggregates and the 18th realms, without abiding anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness in daily life. Such Dharma practice is extremely important. We must go through the mind-cultivating procedure and work with the 10 beliefs to gain a solid foundation for success. What do correction, purification, and not abiding anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness mean? It is the fifth step of the mind-cultivating procedure, treatment. This will involve some practical teachings, so that it can be treated. Let us now see what it means by the process of formation. After talking about the types, nature, and importance, let's now explain the formation process. The process of formation is a process of gradual evolution or rapid formation. These processes must grow or be formed in response to some external or internal root source. So, if we analyze these processes one by one, it will be easier to find the key points to solve these problems. For example, in this case, the external reason that made it impossible for the family reunion was the pandemic. Therefore, considering various factors, such as the severity and transmission capacity of the pandemic, combined with the correct goals and focus and using the right time, place, and people to collect information, we can come up with a solution. So, you will find that it is not difficult to solve these problems. The difficulty lies in the things that come after that. In this case, the mistake of seeking divination was caused by an internal reason. We must search for the four forms, namely, the forms of self, people, sentient beings and longevity, as well as the five aggregates, the aggregates of forms, feelings, perceptions, actions and the mind to find the root source, and further modify the behavioral formulas and mind to help us completely. First, we will not fall into the three lower realms, the realms of hells, hungry ghosts, and animals, because all the roots have been eradicated by us. We will only be reborn in the three upper realms, heavens, the Asura, the human realm. We will go to these places, because they are full of information on practicing the Dharma. If we grasp emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, the essence of perfect enlightenment, we can even escape from the cycle of reincarnation, or become a Buddha. Therefore, in the process of errors or problems being formed, we must pay close attention to whether or not we abide in the four forms and five aggregates, so that we can find the root cause of having greed, hatred and ignorance. Let's take a look again. We said that the mind of deep-seated confidence, sad, means acceptance. If we have a deep belief in cause and effect, and have faith in the Guru, we can develop the wisdom of equality. The mind of thoughtful awareness means accepting that all sentient beings are Buddhas, and then we can develop the wisdom of equality. The mind of diligence means asking questions. Do you have greed, hatred, and ignorance in your emotions? Then you can develop the discriminating wisdom. The mind of wisdom means analysis. Why do you have greed, hatred, and ignorance? Then you can develop the discriminating wisdom. Then comes the mind of meditational concentration. What is the mind of meditational concentration? The mind of meditational concentration is a kind of stability and focus. It is linked to seeking roots. If we can be calm and focused on finding the roots, and when we are finding the roots, it can help us solve the problems in the world. The methods used, remember, must not violate the precepts. If we can focus only on doing our best during the process and not focusing on success, we will not abide in forms, but can instead enhance our awareness, which can extinguish greed, hatred, and ignorance. Using the process of solving problems to develop the awareness and wisdom is the most important thing and what we must do. So, we cannot simply do nothing. If you do nothing, there is no way to develop the awareness and wisdom, which is not allowed. What is the mind of meditational concentration? The mind of meditational concentration means finding the roots and is connected to the mind cultivating procedure. That is, we need to slowly find out the root of the mind of thoughtful awareness, and how it is deviated, so that we can develop the discriminating wisdom. Let us now look at this summary table again. The mind of deep-seated confidence, sad, and the mind of thoughtful awareness mean to accept, firmly believe in cause and effect, have faith in the Guru, and that all sentient beings are Buddhas. We must not abide in forms to release the awareness, so that we can achieve, not to abide anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness and develop the wisdom of equality. Ask questions diligently. What is the goal? Is there any greed, hatred, or ignorance? Are there any actions that trigger errors? If you do it without abiding in forms, you can release your awareness without abiding anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness and develop the discriminating wisdom. The mind of wisdom is to analyze, based on the goal. Collect information and analyze the right time, place, and people. Based on the precepts and Buddhist teachings, why is there greed, hatred, or ignorance? We must not abide in forms to release the awareness, so that we can achieve, not to abide anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness and develop the discriminating wisdom. The mind of meditational concentration is about finding the roots. What roots are you looking for? First, you need to search for roots based on your goal. Second, we need to search for roots based on the type, nature, importance, and formation process. Third, according to the precepts and Buddhist teachings, seek the roots of greed, hatred, and ignorance in the 4 forms and 5 aggregates. We must not abide in forms in order to release the awareness, to find the roots. We should not abide anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness, to find the root, so that we can develop the discriminating wisdom. After talking about finding the root, the last part is treatment, which is the most important. The root has been found, but how to treat it is the key point. Since it involves teachings on practical training and visualization, it will only be passed on to disciples. I am afraid that they will not be taught publicly. The treatment in the mind cultivating procedure will not be seen on YouTube. If you want to learn and have faith in us, you can apply for refuge to Vajra Masters Yeshathay and Pema Ladran, and we will teach you slowly after you have taken refuge. What will be taught in the next session? Among the 10 beliefs, non-retrogression and aspiration have not been taught yet. The 6th to the 10th points have not been taught, but they will be taught in the next session. This disciple of mine, the one who is full of the awareness, asked 3 questions. I have only explained the first question, and the second and third questions will be explained in the next session. The Sutra of the Garland of a Bodhisattva's Primary Karmas states that cultivating the 10 beliefs requires 1 to 3 kalpa before one can reach the initial level, that is, the Bodhisattva with initial resolute vows. That is, if you want to successfully cultivate the 10 beliefs, you have to go through 1 to 3 kalpa, which is considered fast, because the Sutra for Humane Kings states it would take 10,000 kalpa. It would require 10,000 kalpa. Why is it required 10,000 kalpa to cultivate? Because you are always wavering and do not know how to practice. As you do not have a guru to give you detailed and meticulous Buddhist teachings, you do not know how to practice the Dharma. Of course, it will take a very long time. Treatise on the Awakening of Faith states that one will need 10,000 kalpa to cultivate the 10 beliefs before he can achieve success. If you want to become a Buddha, through the current body in the present lifetime, and you want to find a way to cultivate the 10 beliefs quickly and successfully, you must use the mind cultivating procedure. I am teaching you now to develop the 5 wisdoms. The mind cultivating procedure is to accept, question, analyze, find the root and deal with it, to develop the 5 wisdoms and work with the Diamond Sutra's oral pith instructions. Do not omit the oral pith instructions. Without them, you will not be able to practice the Dharma successfully. Whether you can cultivate quickly or slowly depends on how much you apply them. What is the goal of the mind cultivating procedure? It is to integrate the 10 beliefs into the awareness and train to develop the 5 wisdoms. The 10 beliefs are 10 kinds of awareness. Enhance your awareness to the point of not abiding in forms, and thereby cultivate the 10 beliefs. Then, work with the 10 beliefs through not abiding anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness. Thoroughly deal with all difficulties and shortcomings in mind and daily life. Complete and perfect our perfect enlightenment through not abiding anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness. Remember, not abiding in forms does not mean accepting, but doing nothing. Instead, you need to work with the 10 beliefs and do it without any attachment. Not abiding anywhere in order to arouse one's awareness means to actively accept, incorporate the 10 beliefs with the agile mind to develop wisdom and reflect on all actions. In other words, we need to do a lot of things. Therefore, when we accept, we are accepting all the troubles and problems, because they contain both dangers and opportunities. They are our opportunities that can help us develop the wisdom of equality. So, do not be afraid of problems, and do not be afraid of violating the precepts. It turns out that violating the precepts can also be used as an opportunity to help us develop the awareness. In fact, violating precepts or any problems can help us find out all the roots in advance, before we are reborn, while we are still alive, so we will not be reborn in the wrong place, and we can even become a Buddha. This is wonderful. So, remember that. Asking questions, analyzing, and seeking the root causes help us develop the discriminating wisdom. Treatment can help us develop the all-accomplishing wisdom, which can only be taught to disciples. If you successfully develop the above-mentioned 3 wisdoms, and successfully solve problems and correct shortcomings and the mind without abiding in forms, you can achieve the mirror-like wisdom. If you can lead it into emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, the state of oneness, without abiding in forms, you can achieve the Dharmadhatu wisdom. If we have compassion and bodhicitta throughout the whole process, and use the awareness to realize and reflect on actions, we can attain the 100% of perfect enlightenment, which means that we can become a Buddha. You can refer to the 20th to 38th episodes of the Compassion and Bodhicitta series, available from Dudjom Buddhist Association, International's TV channel on YouTube, including this episode, that contain my teaching of the mind cultivating procedure and cases. Today's teaching ends here.